All right. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. Good to see all of you on Zoom land. And our inspirator this morning is Nancy Ferry. Nancy, what is our inspiration of the morning?
Okay, I'm unmuted. I have two quotes. One is from Michelle Obama's most recent book, The Light We Carry. Worry and discomfort of taking a risk. You're potentially costing yourself an opportunity. In clinging only to what you know, you are making your world small. You are robbing yourself of chances to grow. And again, that's Michelle Obama. And the other one is learn from the mistakes of others. You can't live long enough to make them all yourself. That's from an Indian philosopher, Chanakya, I believe. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters.
Thank you very much, Nancy. Well, good morning, everybody. It's good to see you all. Just want to say hi real quick before I jump off and do some more stripping and waxing floors right now. Are there any announcements from the Zoom floor? I'd like to remind everybody that there is the Romeo and Juliet at Shakespeare at Delaware Park next Friday. Kay and I will be there at 4:30 to reserve a spot, and hopefully you guys can join us. Should be a fun time. And also our annual summer picnic will be on Sunday, August 27th at 1 o'clock at Margin Manor, and we'll have a club photo at 3:30. So if any questions, please get a hold of me and or Kate. Are there any other announcements, Nancy?
Eric.
Yes, Jackie, go ahead.
I want to remind everybody, I announced last week that Cornhole for a Cause is happening as a fundraiser for the Mental Health Association. If anybody from Toastmasters wants to participate, you have to register, and the fee is $20, and I will reimburse you if you want to represent Toastmasters at that event. It is this coming Sunday, August June, but bags will fly at 1 p.m. So hope to see some of you there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jackie. All right. If there are, yes, Nancy, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that people are working diligently already on their working on their projects. Marty Johnson has finished level 1 and 3 of dynamic leadership. Les Robinson has finished level 5 of motivational strategies. Mike Licata finished level 5 of dynamic leadership and 1, 2, and 3 of innovative planning. Tracy Farrell has been working on her persuasive influence and finished level 1 and level 4 of dynamic leadership. Dave Licata, level 3 of innovative planning, and Nancy Ferry successfully completed successful collaboration. Keep it up.
All right, let's give a nice wave and congratulations to everybody who completed their paths. Way to go, everybody. Very good. All right, without any further delay, let's move on over to our Toastmaster of the day with theme airports. Let's give it up for David Jones. David, the Zoom lectern is yours.
Thank you, Eric, and good morning, fellow Toastmasters. Just a little housekeeping real quick. Jackie, your internet is very slow and spotty. In fact, you're frozen now, and you are speaker 1, so I don't know if you want to go out and try to come back in, but it's you're frozen as of right now, so it might affect your speaking. Well, over this past year, I've been traveling quite a bit for work and personal. Almost every single week, I'm flying somewhere, if not every other week. And I've learned that airports are a place to observe human behavior. Just the way we act at the airports is very peculiar. And my thought is that companies, businesses, should maybe rent office space within the airports. Because whenever I walk through the airports, whenever I'm sitting waiting for my airplane, I overhear some of the greatest and biggest business deals ever made. I hear some of the greatest management techniques that books should be written about. I think people are more productive at airports than they are at work or even at home. Now, of course, I'm being sarcastic because the airport's full of biggity big shots who want to talk loud and have us all hear exactly what they're saying. Half the time, I think they're not actually talking to anybody. And if they are talking to somebody, I'm sure that person is rolling their eyes on the other end of the phone because people just have to showcase themselves in front of hundreds, if not thousands of other people. Now, personally, I'm embarrassed at the airport talking in front of other people. If somebody calls me, I'll text them and say, I'm at the airport, I'll call you later. I don't want somebody else to hear what's going on in my life, but some people have no problem. I hear a lot of personal stuff at airports that I really should not hear. But with that, today when I call on you for your roles or your speeches, if you want to share some of your airport experiences, I'm sure we'd all love to hear them. And I want to start with our WHAM. And I'm not sure if we call it WHAM when it's the word and master. But our WHAM today is Sylvia Baptiste. Please explain your role and any airport things you might have.
Hi, David. Morning, everyone. Good to be back. I haven't been here for a couple of weeks, kind of out of the loop here. Airports. I just spent a lengthy time at an airport. We went to Vegas, so we went from Buffalo to Denver and had the layover at Denver to Vegas and reverse on the way home. So today's word, the first thing that popped in my head was the TSA, Transportation Security Administration. The American government agency that is responsible for traveling, especially they should focus on the air travel. So that is going to be the word of the day. I put it into the chat. And I'm going to try to multitask here. And I don't know if I could do three things, but we'll try my best to do the grammar and masters, listening for so's, pregnant pauses, and just said, did one as an example. And I hope everyone has a good morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. And speaking of the TSA and the government, I forgot to do the pledge. I'm going to ask our general evaluator to introduce his role and also do the pledge for us because I saw he had the flag in the background a moment ago. Thomas, are you available for that?
I am. I have a fairly spotty internet connection. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Okay, then we'll do the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As general evaluator today, I'll be evaluating the Toastmaster, the overall meeting, and the evaluators. That is my role, my story for airports. Well, I was one of those people who would, before TikTok and all that, would purposely, when traveling with a group of people, would stand away from them and then make up bizarre phone calls like, oh, Tracy's pregnant. How am I going to tell my wife? Oh my gosh, I lost the baby. I can't find her anywhere in the airport. Like just all kinds of crazy stories, and see the people's reaction around me to the stories of them like kind of freaking out hearing somebody talk out loud. That was one of the, and you're right, people watching is hilarious in airports, to watch the different individuals and lose a little bit of faith in humanity sometimes. And that is my story of airports. Back over to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Thomas. Appreciate it. And like an airplane taking off, you got to hold on because we got Jill Roaring giving us some quotes. Go ahead and take off, Jill.
Good morning, everybody. I'm not outside today because it's not pleasant. I have 3 different quotes I found today about airports. First one was from that well-known person, unknown. A mile of highway will take you just 1 mile, but a mile of runway will take you anywhere. The second one is from Jason Reitman. And I'm thinking David Jones will probably agree with this one. All the airports kind of feel and look the same now. Some are more beautiful, some are less beautiful. But for the most part, you're going to find a Starbucks in every airport. You're going to get your coffee in the USA Today or New York Times in every airport. And the last one is from Dove Davidoff, whoever that is. People who say life is precious don't spend much time online at the airport. And the only airport story I have to tell is back in '79. I was in approximately 12 different airports in a 2-week period. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jill. Speaking of beautiful airports, I hope I don't get booed, but a couple of months ago, I had to go to Newark, downtown Newark, for business. And I found that was my first time in New Jersey. And I found that the most beautiful part of New Jersey was actually the airport. Just my personal opinion. Right, next up is our jester. I have very high expectations for Mike because Mike has been jester before and he's usually had some good zingers. So let's see what you got for us, Mike Florio.
Oh boy. Good morning, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. I think that with the theme airport, the movie has some pretty good jokes in it that kind of take it away. And first one that comes to mind, surely you can't be serious. I am serious, and don't call me Shirley. And then this one's a little racy. Timmy, ever been to a Turkish prison? And then Roger, what's your vector, Victor? That movie was classic. They stole every one-liner that there possibly was. Now, really, there could have been a TSA back then, but there wasn't in the 70s and the 80s. So I'm sure they would have had a great time with, maybe a strip search here and there, and stealing my nail clippers. I travel quite a bit. I think I went through about, I don't know, 5 or 6 nail clippers before I finally said, all right, I'm not going to bring my nail clippers anymore, to the airport. That's it. And then finally, what do you call someone who's sick at the airport? They have a terminal illness.
There you go.
Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Toastmaster Mike. I appreciate it. Next up is the only timer who wants you to either go overtime or undertime so that he can give his one-liner meatloaf quote when you do so. Please welcome Mark Campos.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. Good morning. Of course, in Toastmasters, everything must adhere to time. Table topics, 1.5 to 2 minutes with a 15-second buffer. Evaluations, 2 to 3 minutes with a 30-second buffer. And speeches, typically 5 to 7 minutes with a 30-second buffer, unless you tell me otherwise. With regard to airports, Mr. Toastmaster, I've spent a lot of time in airports. I used to travel pretty extensively for work. And I'm with you. I can't stand the loud person on the phone that wants you to hear their conversation. If I can't have my conversation off to the side where it's relatively quiet, I'm not having it. But in terms of interesting stories, I'm hard pressed. Just a couple of things though. Inspired by a buddy of mine who travels a lot. He is repulsed by people that sit on the floor, lay on the floor, sleep on the floor in the airport. He calls them airport zombies.
So I've started to snap pictures of some notable airport zombies that I sent to him, the best of which was in Las Vegas, obviously after a really great weekend. Someone sleeping facing the wall on the floor, great shot. But also I have the basis for a speech, a little too long of a story for right now, but where my flight was canceled coming out of Newark Airport, trying to come home. And I really needed to get home and somehow paired up with two complete strangers for a drive home from Newark to Buffalo and right out of planes, trains, and automobiles. So I'll have to deliver a speech on that one. If I haven't, then I've just forgotten about Mr. Toastmaster.
Awesome. We all look forward to that story. It sounds compelling. So as Thomas mentioned, people watching for me is one of the favorite things to do at an airport. In general, we all behave really poorly when we're under stress and we're traveling, especially back when I was married with the two kids and we'd travel with all the luggage. And I know I had to be the scene for everybody. But now as a single person, I just get to go and sit and watch everybody else stress out and be chaotic and act poorly. Yesterday, I'm here in Tampa, Florida today. I'm on the little metro rail type of thing that takes you from one terminal to the next. And I'm standing there holding onto the metal rail, looking at a little girl, maybe 2 years old in front of me in a stroller. And she's picking her nose and eating it, picking her nose and eating it, picking her nose and eating it. Eventually she picks her nose and just puts it on the railing, the same railing my hand's on. And I was just wondering, what is my hand holding underneath there when I saw that? It just reminded me of how dirty things are. It has nothing to do with COVID. Next up is going to be our quiz master, Mike Licata. You want to tell us about your role?
Good morning, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. My job this morning will be to make sure that everyone is listening by giving a quiz at the end of the meeting. And my airport story is somebody who's worked in the service industry as long as I have. I really have to admire the airport bartenders that show up usually between 6 and 8 a.m. and start serving at the larger airports, because as a traveler, you never know what time zone the person is in. So I always find it fascinating that the bartenders do such a great job of welcoming the individuals and not passing judgment on that person. And that is my story, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Toastmaster Mike. I do pass judgment on people when I see them at 10 in the morning pounding down a few drinks at the airport, but you're right, they could be from another side of the world, so I should not pass judgment on them. But now I get to take a little break and turn it over to Tracy, who's going to be our table topics master for the day, and hopefully she's got some great table topics about airport for us. Take it away, Tracy.
Thank you, David. So airports. I've sat next to some really interesting people on airplanes. One person was actually a Toastmaster. She was an author of a book, and I sat and listened to her about her book for 2 hours. Another time I sat next to a guy who claims he owned the car from Cannonball Run. So Mike Florio, can you tell me about some interesting people that you've met in the airport? And don't forget to use the word TSA.
Let's see. Hello. Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. I'm trying to think of the craziest people that I've met. Usually I'm the guy, I want the aisle seat, and I want to make sure that I'm comfortable, because I try to avoid, honestly, the conversation with the people next to me. And I'm trying to think of who I've gone through. Now, going through the TSA, now, if we talk about that, I've had a lot of times where, okay, I've had my beard on and everything. And then, of course, during the 9/11 period, I'd be pulled over and pretty much strip searched, and that was always pretty wild. That was, like I said before, the nail clipper thing. I've had shampoo taken away from me. I've had all kinds of things that kind of look like weapons, or something that I've had that looked like, I had too much water with me that I forgot. Anyway, I would always be spotted and pulled over. Usually though, on the plane, I'm traveling with friends of mine that for business that I'm not usually chatting too much. I'm trying to recall someone, and I can't at the moment, that I've sat next to that really kind of blew me away. So you caught me on that one. Mr. Tabletop, Madam Tabletop, Mr.
Thanks, Mike.
I'll think of something probably 5
Let me
minutes.
know. So Nancy, and I'm sorry, I'm having to double up on some of these jobs. Planes, trains, or automobiles? What's your favorite mode of travel? And do you prefer one mode for shorter durations and another one for longer trips? Tell me about it.
Well, thank you, Madam. Table topics. I've done my share of all of them. I prefer to get somewhere quickly, so planes are my favorite. Going through the TSA is not my favorite. It starts me with anxiety. I'm sure they're going to find something. They always find a thing in nail clippers, Mike. We can share that story. There's always a little something. I had a little key thing one time that had, it hid a little nail file that my daughter gave me. It was a key ring. She gave it to me for Christmas one year and ended up at the bottom of my purse. They strip searched the purse and practically strip searched me, thinking that I had something on me. I was like, take it. I don't, it's really a $2 thing. I had confiscated one time Duke's mayonnaise from, I went to Raleigh, Durham to visit my sister, and I was so excited to get Duke's because we didn't have it up here. You can find it now, but they took away my Duke's. It's not gel, it's mayonnaise. I did have also an interesting experience. I sit on the inside aisle, I mean the inside next to the window, so that people don't crawl over me if they have to go to the bathroom. And I usually don't have to go on the plane, so I like to push myself up against the window. And this woman that was very, very, very large decided to sit in the seat next to me. And she was coming down the aisle and I kept on saying, please no, and please no. She sat on my left leg the whole time. And when I went to stand up, I had this, I almost fell over. I had to sit there for about 5 minutes and get the feeling back in my leg. Madam Toastmaster, Table Topics Master, thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. So Dave Licata, tell me about some of those long delays in airports and maybe some of your people watching and so forth. Delays.
I've been very, very fortunate. I don't recall any delays in an airport, maybe an hour or two. But my favorite airport story is coming back from Italy in 1971. I took a train from Milan to Paris. And on New Year's Eve, I missed the last flight back to London. So I resigned myself to the fact that I was going to sit in a corner of Charles de Gaulle Airport and wait for my 7 a.m. flight. Well, the best part was shortly after the new year had rung in, a bunch of jet-setting rich young people, not hippies like me, you know, with my umbrella, my hair down to my shoulder is in my winter jacket. They got off the plane and they spotted this poor lonely guy in the corner, no New Year's Eve celebration. And all the girls lined up and gave me a little New Year's Eve kiss. I don't have any TSAs. Oh, excuse me, I do have a TSA story. On that very same trip, I had under my arm a huge salami that my relatives in Aquila, Italy had given me to make sure that I gave it to my grandfather. And arriving in New York, back home in the good old USA, the TSA asked me if I had anything. I said, I got this salami, and they grabbed it, and I never saw it again. I hope you had a great lunch. That was terrible losing that salami. That really got me down. I'll tell you that. My background is a port. I was looking for an airport background, but I couldn't find one. But Lockport's a port, so that was the airport of the day. Thank you so much, Madam Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Dave. Dave, I'll do the words and the timing if you want. Mark, can you tell us if all of our contestants came in time?
Yep, Madam Table Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters, all 3 contestants qualified.
All right, awesome. And Sylvia, can you tell us if they all used the word?
PSA was used. Mike Floro has used it twice so far this morning. Nancy once. David Licata even used it twice. He started with one, but then said it again. David Jones said it once. And of course, you have said it a couple times. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. I'll pass it back to you, David Jones.
Thank you. There's our voting. So. Perfect. All right, I'd like to do a public service announcement about airports because many comedians make a joke about it, and many of, I'm not going to say you all, but a lot of people have a conniption fit when they're over 50 pounds with their luggage and they have to take luggage out and they're yelling and screaming because it's all going to the same place. It has nothing to do with the airplane, it has to do with the employees. I've been in workers' comp for 25 years, and it's about the 50 pounds that the people have to pick up your bag over and over again. The repetition can pull their back, therefore they try to keep it under 50 pounds, and that's why you shouldn't pack 10 pairs of shoes for a 4-day trip. That's, I don't want to say it's anybody specific, but pretty much when men travel 3-day trip, 3 underwear, 3 socks, 3 shirts, we're wearing our jeans, our pair of shoes, that's all we need. So we're about 10 pounds when we travel. Now we're going to move on to our evaluators. And first up is Beth Banks, who's going to introduce Jackie Penny.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster of the day. I will be having the pleasure of evaluating Jackie Kenny for my TSA story. I think has to probably be the worst was coming back from Dublin, and they kept telling us the flight was delayed and the flight was delayed and the flight was delayed. And we finally started hearing that the plane wasn't even in Dublin that we were going to have to take. And oh, we finally found out that that plane was still in the United States and it had some part that had to be replaced. So we would have to stay overnight. We all thought, well, great, we're going to stay overnight in Dublin. One more day in Dublin, that's a great thing to do. Wrong. They took us to a hotel that really the only thing that we could see from the hotel was one Aldi's and a few houses. And they really didn't have enough food for everyone. They had a buffet. We got fed very minimal choices. But then we found out that after one of the buses from the flight bringing us all there, they pretty much ran out of food before that busload got dropped off. So I don't really know what those poor people ate. And then we had to go back to the airport the next day and do it all over again. Luckily we got out, but then the flight that was supposed to be that day, all those people had to wait a day because they wouldn't all fit on the flight we were taking. So it was rather a nightmare coming back from Dublin because the the TSA, whatever you want to call it over there, also, they weren't letting us go back into the main part of the airport. So we were forced to strip one of the food vendors of all the food that food vendor had, because we weren't allowed to go back in. So that was not a pleasant experience at all. But we're going to move on to Jackie, who, of course, is a wonderful speaker, always a challenge to evaluate. Jackie is working from the motivational strategies pathway. She's going to motivate others, which is very easy for her. It is a 5 to 7 minute speech timer. And the project title is Set Your Clock. Jackie Kenny, set your clock.
Why, thank you, Madam Evaluator. I'm glad to be here this morning, and I love the topic. One of my most interesting airport experiences happened in 1970. To set the scene for you, at that point in time, Kevin had gone to Italy, where he was stationed in Naples, and was looking for an apartment for Jennifer and I to join him. Jennifer was 6 months old when we were finally able to take flight. Leaving out of Buffalo, my mother clutching Jennifer's feet as I went down the stairway in those days, down the stairway onto the tarmac, onto the plane, and away you would go. I stayed in New York for a few days because one of my older brothers lived there. So I spent some time with he and his wife, had a very nice visit. I wasn't going to see them for quite a while. And then it was time to leave for my flight on Pan American that long ago. We headed out for the airport, but my wonderful brother had hunger pains and we needed to stop for a hamburger. We left in plenty of time, but the hamburger stop made us run into traffic and I missed my flight. Well, I had to deal with the TSA. And in those days, they were very nice to mothers with children, very considerate. But they had to let me through so I could try to make my flight. And of course, I did not. Next stop, the ticket counter to get some help in booking another flight. And they managed to get me on a flight that was leaving just 2 hours after the flight I was supposed to take. We were going to fly into Heathrow first. This was, you know, a long time ago. There were no cell phones or faxes or any convenient up in Italy with no knowledge of where Kevin was or how to reach him. Well, we boarded the plane. The flight attendants very nicely gave me a full row to myself. So Jennifer and I had plenty of room to be comfortable. It was kind of fun watching other people board. There was a whole group of little old ladies with blue hair, evidently a tour of some kind. They were very interested when they saw Jennifer, who was a very pretty baby. Oh, Evelyn, look at the darling baby. Has she ever flown before? No, but she was a perfect angel. And they were willing to help me, did everything that needed to be done to keep a little baby happy. Well, then we got into Heathrow. And of course, my connecting flight was long gone. So I had to go through all of that turmoil of finding another flight into Naples. And again, no way to find out where my husband was or how to get a hold of him. Back then, when you had a phone in your apartment, it was extremely unusual overseas. It cost a fortune. So we had no phone. I managed to get myself to Naples, and along the way, I learned some bits and pieces of Italian. My first words in the language were responding to what is her name and how old is she, and no, she's not cold. All the little old ladies thought I didn't keep her warm enough. It was kind of a fun adventure. I also learned how to ask for milk. Can you fill this bottle for me? It all worked out. Kevin eventually came and found us. He had times for all the incoming flights and kept meeting each flight until he finally hit the right one. So he was there when we needed him. It was an amazing adventure flying. It was probably my third flight in my life at 22 with a baby on my back and all our belongings in a huge bag. Everything we needed to keep us going until who knows when. You don't know when you're going to get picked up when you miss your flight. But I'm so glad I had that adventure. I am so glad that I blew whatever money we had on going to live overseas for a year. Unreal. Thank you. And thank the TSA.
Thank you, Toastmaster Jackie. Next up to evaluate Carol Ann's speech is Lynn Thornton, and I'm sure he has some thoughts on poor behavior at airports. Take it away, Lynn.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. I do indeed. The TSA, my nemesis. The actors who perform the security theater that we're all so accustomed to in the airport. And a lot of times that's what it is. Complete with all the attitude they can muster, assuming you, like them, are in that line every single day and know the exact routine for that particular airport. But I suppose after 9/11, with all the money that the airlines give to our lawmakers in Washington, when they said, you've got to get people to fly again, they responded, the government responded and created this wonderful system, which every time they test allows to more knives and true weapons than nail clippers. But I digress. This morning, Carol Ann will be giving a speech from Pathways. It is the theme of which is connect with storytelling. The purpose of this project is to practice using a story within a speech or giving a speech that is a story. Mr. Timer, this is a 5 to 7 minute speech. And I'll give her title. It's LAX, November 11th, 2019. Carol Ann Halstead, LAX, November 11th, 2019.
Good morning, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. Since I am not a frequent flyer, I am very intimidated by the TSA. In 2008, my husband and I were flying to Reno, and it was the first time I'd flown in years. And my husband made it through security. I was walking through and the metal detector went off and they said, you have something metal between your waist and your ankle. And I still was just very intimidated. And they said, you'll have to step to the side. So I did. Another lady was coming through security right after me, and she said, I have a hip replacement. All of a sudden, it jogged my memory that I had a knee replacement. And I turned around and said, I have a knee, I have a knee. And then they did let me through. And another time when we had been in Hawaii, when our granddaughter was there to dance with Diane Mulvey's group. And I, again, was the last in line of our group. I walked through and they said, ma'am, you can't have that. I had my purse over my shoulder and my phone in my hand. And then I resolved that issue. Now, let's go to LAX, November 11th, 2019. As we were disembarking from the Celebrity Eclipse cruise ship from a cruise to Hawaii, I got a text saying that our flight back to Buffalo via Chicago had been canceled. We took a taxi to the airport and I went into the United Airlines area, and we didn't know what to do. So it was my husband and we stood there looking with the look on our face like deer in the headlights. Luckily, some airport personnel came to us and said, would you be from the Buffalo flight? And we said, yes. And so she sent us to a line, a very long line. But eventually we were able to get to our, to the counter, rebook a flight for the next morning about 10 o'clock. And this was going to be to Buffalo via Newark. Thankfully, we have a good friend, Joe, who lives in Long Beach, California. We called him, he came and picked us up, and we went out to eat, and he graciously welcomed us into his home to spend the night. The next morning was November 12th, which happened to be his birthday, but he still was very willing to drive us to the airport. Obviously, we were on the freeway. I must admit, I kept my eyes closed most of the trip because the traffic was unbelievable. They had a center lane just for motorcycles. And we did get on our flight. We landed in Newark, and we noticed that we weren't in the terminal we needed to be. So we were directed to take a bus from one terminal to the other. And then we went and we sat in the area of the gate that was listed on our ticket. However, we looked at the board and it didn't say Buffalo. So we checked with someone and they directed us to the correct area. Now we're taking the flight back to Buffalo on a commuter jet, which always have the memory of 3407 in my mind with commuter jets from Newark to Buffalo. However, just said a little extra prayer as we taxied down the runway, and we arrived in Buffalo safely and were met by our daughters and immediately started reminiscing about the the wonderful memories we had of our cruise to Hawaii and our other experiences. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Toastmaster Carol Ann. Whenever we're at the airport, people watching, there's always that one person that catches your eye and you're thinking, what are they doing? And they're just not doing anything weird, but they're just very entertaining. We're all lucky to have him here today. Phil Russell is here to evaluate Marty Johnson's speech. Take it away, Phil.
Zippity doo dah. What a wonderful day it is. My favorite airport is Niagara Falls. And the reason is when my son, and this will be a speech later on, when he flew in from Whidbey Island with a U.S. Navy jet, flew in and out of Niagara Falls. But Buffalo is the easiest to get to and get out of. That's another speech. Chicago has a, as you know, a libation station every 50 feet. It's a wonderful place to go. And then, if you want an exciting adventure, fly into Aspen in the middle of a snowstorm between all those mountains and go down the runway sideways. It's quite exhilarating. But the safest airport was Switzerland. We were either riding one of those tram trains or walking, I can't remember, but there was a big glass wall between us and it. And behind that glass wall was a armored personnel carrier with a gun pointing straight at us. And every so often they were there. So you knew that the Swiss do not mess around. Now, Mr. Toastmaster, let's move on to the evaluation. I have it right up here with Marty. Marty Johnston, DTM IPS LD4, is being evaluated on a 5 to 7 minute speech. 5 to 7. And his purpose is, the purpose statement is, the purpose of this project is for the member to practice developing a change in management plan. The purpose of the speech is for the member to share some aspect of a change management plan. Now, Marty, 5 to 7 minutes. Marty is working and doing this. We've heard it before on his management style. He's doing a great job with this, by the way. And the title of the speech, 5 to 7 minutes, Roll with the Changes. Roll with the Changes, Martin Johnston.
Mike, why are you changing my work schedule? Mary says, Sam, why are we changing our flight schedule? TSA, why aren't you keeping us safer? You need to make a change. We don't like change. Let's face it, we're resistant to change by nature. Fellow Toastmasters, Mr. Toastmaster, my project this morning is to inform you. I'm going to give you an overview of my change management plan. And being the incoming Division C director, I am rolling, R-O-L-E, R-O-L-I-N-G, rolling in my role as area director to ensure that Division C becomes a distinguished division. That is my goal. And there are three main areas I want to focus on this morning during this presentation, and they are the overview of the plan, the impact the plan has had on me, and not only me, but thirdly, on others, other members and other area directors. I'd like to start with the overview of the plan. This is a very interesting project, and there's more to it than 5 to 7 minutes. That's why I'm giving an overview. But as the incoming Division C director, my vision, if you will, is to see that Division C becomes distinguished. And one might ask, how is a division going to become distinguished? Well, there are two main areas and goals in this requirements, prerequisites, if you will. And the first one is you can't have any clubs that are lost or go by the wayside. You can't lose any clubs in the program year that started July 1st and ends June 30th of next year. And the second prerequisite is that you need at least 40% of the clubs in the division to become distinguished. So in a nutshell, that is my overview of the project. And now I'm going to move into the second point is the impact that it's going to have on me. I need to create a communication plan and inform all the stakeholders, if you will, all the members, the area directors, and the leadership in the district, that that's what the goal is. That's what I would like to see. And the reason I came up with this Division C becoming distinguished is because last program year that just ended June 30th, 2023, Division C missed becoming distinguished by about 2 percentage points. They was 38.5% of the clubs in Division C were distinguished. That is why my goal is for Division C to become distinguished, because we're that close. And I know that they can do it. I know it's a lot of work. And I know you are all familiar with what it entails. But I feel that 2 percentage points, we're starting with a clean slate, and we're going to go forward and try to accomplish this lofty, it is a lofty goal. I feel we can do it. And one of the keys here is that I have to inform them that it's a shared goal. The clubs try to become distinguished, as we well know at AM Lockport. The areas try to become distinguished, and then the division tries to become distinguished. And it's all a shared goal among everyone involved. And the third and last key area that I'm focusing on is the impact that the plan is going to have on others. Yes, it is a lot of work. Many of you know that it is a lot of work. And one of the main challenges for the members of these clubs in Division C is membership. We all know that membership is a prerequisite to become distinguished. And I'm hoping that the requirement of +3 members instead of the +5 will help ensure that, because as you know, in the past, it was a net gain of 5 new members or 20 members total. I'm hoping that'll help. And as I was looking through the distinguished performance report on the dashboard in District 65, which we all have access to, the other variable that is going to be key besides the membership goal prerequisite is having club officers trained. That is vital. And our program quality director, Avis Brody, stressed that in a recent email. She said she wants to have at least 4 club officers trained in every club in our District 65. And I feel that with the clubs having their officers trained, yes, it is commitment, time commitment, but it is well worthwhile for our membership and to help our members achieve their goals, the areas to achieve their goals, and for the division to achieve their goals of becoming distinguished club. Now that you know a little bit more about my project, my plan overview, the impact that it'll have on me and other members in Division C, I want to let you know that I'm definitely going to revisit this project in the near future. It'll most likely be after June 30th of next year. I may give you an update as we go on how this roll with the changes project worked. And I'm hoping that Division C will be distinguished. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Toastmaster Marty. Appreciate it. Give you a second, Mark, but can we get a timer's report from you?
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, all three speakers qualified. Jackie at 6:17, Carol Ann at 5:55, and Marty with a little bit of help from the buffer at 7:06.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr. Timer.
Toastmaster.
Appreciate it. Running close to being right on time, but I just want to bring up dogs at the airport. Personally, enough with the dogs is my opinion. Everybody's got their dog. They can't all be service dogs. I think they all know some good doctors. There are dogs everywhere in the airport. It's had an unfortunate situation yesterday with a couple. I think her name was Karen, and usually I bite my tongue, but I did say something and they overheard what I mumbled to myself. And I did get some applause for saying what I said, but I don't want to go into that right now. It wasn't my finest moment. So I'm going to turn it over to our evaluator one, who is Beth Banks. And you want to tell us what you thought about Jackie Kenny's speech?
Okay. I have to get back in here. I'm trying to look at the who's paid and who hasn't and getting a little distracted with that. So I apologize, Mr. Toastmaster, for not being quick on the draw here. Of course, evaluating Jackie Kenny, it is always a pleasure, but it's difficult in some ways. She's the ultimate Toastmaster in my opinion, so one that we all can learn from. One of the great things that she did today was to use the theme in her speech. Some of us, we have those hip pocket speeches and we just speak about something not related to the theme at all. The only problem with that was I thought maybe she was just talking about airports before her speech. So I have to admit, maybe in the beginning of that, I didn't catch everything because I didn't really think it was part of the speech. And then I realized, wait a minute, she's using the theme. That's fantastic. She should be using the theme. I love it. I love that Jackie could adjust to her internet access, not maybe being as good as it could be. I believe myself out in the country where I am, there are times when it's cloudy, not good weather, my internet access isn't good. So you adjusted very well to that. I love the change in your voice, particularly when you were pretending to be someone else. I always like that. I guess it's the mom in us that we've read stories to our children for so many years that we do the different voices, and you were able to do that. It was very effective. Your facial expressions were very good. The only thing that I would recommend for another time is maybe step back just a little so we could see any hand gestures, because I really couldn't see your hands moving at all. But overall, very good speech. I love the storytelling about something that really happened to you. That's wonderful. Thank you, Jackie, for a great speech today. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Toastmaster Beth. Now, my little episode yesterday, this is just a tip for when you fly. I got to the airport at 1 o'clock. It was lunchtime. I decided to have a few drinks before I flew. Problem was, a few hours before that, I went to the doctor and they drew some blood for tests. Therefore, I think the alcohol, less blood, became an issue for my conversation. I'll just leave it at that. Next up is Lynn Thornton, who's going to evaluate Carol Ann Halston.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster and fellow Toastmasters, and especially Carol Ann. Carol Ann, this was a storytelling speech, and you did exactly that, using the theme no less. You had excellent lighting for your presentation, good steady voice. I saw you making eye contact, and you used some vocal variety. All things that are essential in capturing someone's attention as you're telling a story. And you went on a Celebrity Cruise Lines trip to Hawaii. I think I would have liked to have heard a little bit more about that. But obviously, the thrust of your speech was the problems of air travel. And we've all been there. Every time I've ever flown with my sons, I've used it as a teaching moment to teach them the best practices in an airport, to avoid some of the pitfalls I've experienced in my life, of racing to gates, missing flights, general confusion and chaos, stress. It can be a very stressful thing. How to get through security without being flagged, patted down and all. Little best practices. And I'm sure you learned a few as well on this endeavor. A couple things I would suggest for you. And because you gave such a great speech, this is kind of nitpicking, but if you could raise up your laptop or your monitor so that your camera's more level with you, as opposed to looking down on it, which is kind of a different look, okay? If you're at eye level with the camera, it's more personal, it's more directed. And again, that's easily fixed with a couple books underneath your camera stand, be it your monitor or your laptop. I also like to see a stronger conclusion, something that really pulls together your whole experience, the whole narrative of your story. Work on that as you're developing your speech, something that really sends us away after listening to you, knowing what exactly it was about, the challenges you faced, how you overcame them. It was a wonderful speech. A pleasure listening to that. Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you, Toastmaster Lynn. And finally, Bill, you want to tell us how Marty Johnson's speech did?
Doing quick readjustments there, Mr. Toastmaster. Thank you very much. Now, Marty. I think you did a good job. I liked your open. You had good vocal variety and a good story to grab our attention. And I'll address that a little bit more at the end. Goals. You had good explanations of every one of them. The overview. You described what you're going to do. You told us, let us know what you're going to do. Impact on yourself. That was important. That was one of the goals. I really liked it. And impact on others. You were bringing in not just yourself, but everyone else in your management field. That's important. Your visual, the camera, you're doing something that I try to work on, was excellent. Meaning your eye contact was very good. You only moved your eyes, but you know, sometimes you have to. You can't be just sitting there stiff, talking about not doing that. You were natural. Let me say this, though, about your natural speech. I like it when you're natural. You're about 75% there. What that means is when you were looking at and you weren't sure what you were talking about, it changed your demeanor and your speech. So just work on that last 25%. It didn't detract from the speech at all. Don't get me wrong, but that's something I think you should work on. Okay, you need to smooth it out for the whole speech. Be there the whole time in your natural order of things. I think that would be great. Now, What I think you need to really challenge yourself with, beef up the close. The open was good story. You grabbed our attention. You didn't have to be exciting. All you did was tell us a good story. I liked it. Sometimes you can bring back that story and use it in the close to make your point and make it come across strongly. Mr. Toastmaster.
Okay, Toastmaster Phil. And can we get a timer's report, please, Laura?
Mr. Toastmaster, all three evaluators qualified. That means we have had a perfect day time-wise, and I don't get to use my standard cliche today. One reminder, though, I neglected to launch the poll for the best speaker, so I'll try to launch them both, but I may have to do the speaker and then the best evaluator, Mr. Toastmaster.
Perfect, thank you. I have a few minutes. I just want there we go, best speaker. Let's vote on that first, and then I will say what I have to say to Marty. So fortunately, this year I became Club Growth Director here in North Carolina, Marty. And one of the great opportunities is to interview all of the international director contestants. These are some of the top Toastmasters around the world. We get to pick their brain while we're asking them questions. I noticed one of the people was a district director during 2019-2020, and his district reached distinguished or presidential distinguished, which I had never seen before because that was during the pandemic. And I asked him, how did he do it? And he told me that he was one of 3 people in the world that as a district director hit presidential during the pandemic. So he was a wonderful person. And his motto was leave no club behind. So they focused on every single club in the district, especially the smaller clubs. And for instance, we wouldn't focus on AM Lockport because AM Lockport's going to be distinguished year after year after year because that's your personal pride. He would focus on the smaller clubs, and that's what we're going to do in my district. And also finally, last year I was Division C director here, and my motto for C was chatty. I encouraged everybody to give a speech and to be chatty and keep talking. So that's a little insight for you to work with your division. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our general evaluator, Thomas. And Thomas, you want to call on the rolls and close us out? That'd be wonderful.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. This morning we had a meeting on airplanes and airports and TSA. I had so many stories that I just throughout the meeting where I was just like having memories, but I will not burden anyone with all of those. I think I want to give a speech on how to prepare for long flights though, and changing time zone, because a lot of people I don't think have the experience or ability to do that. Overall, the meeting is on time. That's very good. It looks like all roles were confirmed. I don't know what time exactly that was done, but I'm sure you reached out and made sure everyone was confirmed. You weren't hunting for people to fill roles. That was a good management, or maybe it was just luck of the draw, not sure. But I'm going to assume you did some good work to make sure that happened. We called the meeting to order right on time. Basically, it was right on time. And we had a fill-in for our officer that was not able to make it here. Katie wasn't here. And he had a fill-in with Eric, who is doing floors right now. We did skip the pledge, but we did come back to it, so that's good. We have a word master. We'll call on her last. So I think I'll go through 1 or 2 reports first. I think we don't have a quiz master today, so that's okay. We dropped it.
Mike Licata.
Right. He is here?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
so we'll do our master grammarian first. We'll get that report from Sylvia, I believe. Sylvia, can you give your report for the grammarian?
Sure can. Like I said, I was triple trying to do this 3 jobs here and without coffee, so that was not a good thing. But I did hear a few so's from Beth, Carol Ann, and I heard a word I really liked Carol Ann used, disembarking. I thought that was a great word. As ahs and ums, today was a really interesting day with this topic. People had to think at top of their head with table topics, but also it looked like some of the speeches, they were not read, and which is great. You don't want to read a speech during, as you're doing a presentation in front of people. So everything was wheeling in their head. You could see that. And they were doing, trying to think what to say next, how to connect it. We had a couple of that. And as all, I think the meeting went well with that. Let me know when you want the word count.
Thank you, Sylvia. The word count will give some people some opportunities, I think. So overall, one of the things I noticed is the lack of standing. I understand we're all restricted. A lot of us are restricted by a headset or headphones, and there are others, and maybe the setup you have right now is not conducive to standing, but you deliver and talk much better when you stand. It's a good idea. Another thing I haven't seen a lot of is props. You're at home. You really don't have to worry about carrying the props very far. Just a little model airplane would have been kind of fun for the meeting. Maybe a suitcase, something to, add to the atmosphere to get people thinking. But you had good control of the meeting overall, and I think everyone did well as far as speaking from a seated position. Now, these 3 speakers today all did a great job. I think there was a lot of effort put in on each of the speeches, that people looked into their topic, planned it out, they went online, they went and put the information in. So they clearly were preparing for their speeches. It didn't look like anyone was unprepared to speak. Evaluators, you have to remember your main job is mentoring. You're evaluating the speech, you're trying to help. We all try and help each other grow. And I noticed a little bit of a theme with all 3 speeches. We did a sandwich approach, but we put 90% of the bread on the top and only 10% at the bottom. We all opened up very well with the mechanicals that went well with the speeches. And then we had improvements, and then a lot of them kind of just didn't have enough bread, I think, at the end. It was like the overall speech was good. Okay. After improvements, you probably want to do a little bit more hyping up on at the end of an evaluation. And we did a good job of staying away from evaluating the content of the speech. That is sometimes a mistake that is made. So overall, excellent job by everyone. I was looking for something, to point out, but there wasn't. Everything went smoothly. So with that, I'm going to ask for the word report and hand it back to the Toastmaster of the day so that he can possibly use the remaining time for announcements or maybe more stories. So with that, back to Sylvia for the word master.
Still have a quiz master report too.
Oh, yeah. You are correct. Sylvia, then the quiz master. Sorry.
Hey, was used many times during people's speeches because two people had the theme of airports, planes, travel. Beth used it twice, Jackie used it a couple times, Len used it, Carol Ann used it, Marty used it, and of course you used it too, Thomas. And also, Thomas, you sound like the pilot on one of my planes talking through your headset. It was hard to hear him, but I could hear you better. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have a meeting at 8:30 that I have to leave for, so I'm gonna actually turn it over to Mike as quiz master and log off, if that's all right with everyone. Over to Mike.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. A few quick questions this morning. When Carol Ann went through the metal detectors, what set off the metal detectors when she went through them?
Knee.
There you go. And what percentage of clubs need to be distinguished for a division to reach the distinguished level?
40 something.
40% is what Marty said. And what did the TSA take away from Nancy?
Her nail clippers, her shampoo, her jello.
Mayonnaise.
Mayonnaise. Mayonnaise, I heard
mayonnaise.
Duke's
What-
mayonnaise.
And what did Jackie have to stop for before her flight in New York City?
A hamburger for her brother.
Correct. And what distinct feature did some of the fellow flyers have on Jackie's flight?
They were old ladies that were fussing over the baby.
No, well, I also had blue hair.
Blue hair, yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
blue hair.
And now I think I'll turn it over to, does that leave Nancy as the last, as the club officer that wants to close the meeting, or?
Nope, I am.
Okay.
Have anything else to add?
Did you get the winners of today?
Yes, I have. Thank you to Mark, and we would like to say congratulations to our best topics master, Nancy Ferry. Congratulations to Nancy. Our best evaluator this morning is Len Thornton. Congratulations to Len. And our best speaker of the day, please put your hands together for Jackie Kenny.
Oh, well, thank you, everyone.
And on that note, your Toastmaster for next week is yours truly. I will have a theme in the coming days, so keep your eyes peeled for your emails. Mark Campbell, you're on deck for speaker. Also Tracy and Jill, and our alternate speaker is Katie. So are there any other final announcements before I adjourn? Yes, Len?
Eric, last week, we really didn't, as far as the dues goes, I'm not sure about our decision. It was very fuzzy. I know the people, I have 20 that paid their dues before the 31st. But my question is, what do I do about the people that didn't pay the dues? Should I just be charging them the 66, or should I be adding on the 15 that the amount the dues is going up? Phil?
Phil? Yeah, Phil.
I make a motion that you just charge them the regular 66, not worry about the increase.
I believe that was decided last week, actually.
Okay.
John. Good.
I wasn't too sure, so I wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Anything we reap from the international reduction, just helps our bank account, but just to keep it simple, keep it the same.
Thank you,
Okay.
everybody. Thank
I
you
have
for.
one additional announcement, Eric. Kudos to Mark Campus for initiating the meeting today on very short notice and running the Zoom meeting and recording and polls nearly flawlessly. Well done, Mark.
Good job, Mark.
Nearly flawlessly. You're right about that. I think that gap between flawless and flawful is pretty big.
Even the best of us make a few little mishaps.
By the way, since we were talking about airports, what happened to the movie of Airport 1975, Airport 1977? Did we miss that? Because I was waiting for the airport movie references with Dean Martin, Burt Lancaster, George Kennedy. I was waiting for those. Those were good movies. So, yeah. All right. Well, thank you everyone for a wonderful meeting. Hope to see you all next week. Have a good weekend and be well, everybody. Thank you very much.